Hey, Miss Amanda. So I did my hair and my makeup and I put on a nice shirt. Did my speech a couple thousand times. And I thought I did really well, and then I listened to it and I realized I was going about it wrong. So I decided to put my hair up, put on something comfy, and go about this a little bit differently. So here we go. A study commenced by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce 21st Century Energy Institute says the extraction of unconventional shale oil and gas through horizontal hydraulic fracking has met a job boom even in states that don't have shale deposits, with a 1.7 million job increase and a total of 3.5 million jobs projected by 2035. Today I will be talking to you about hydrofracking. The main things I will be going over is what exactly is hydrofracking, what are the positive and negative impacts, and what are some alternative energy sources. My thesis is that hydrofracking has both positive and negative impacts. So, what exactly is hydrofracking? Well, according to the National Institute of Environmental Health Science, hydraulic fracking is a method used to extract natural gas and oil from deep rock formations known as the shale. Using this method, operators force water, sand, and a mixture of chemicals into horizontally drilled wells, causing the shale to crack and release natural gas and oil. This brings me to my first piece of visual aid. So this kind of shows how everything works. Hope you can see that. Is this better? Yeah, this is better. Okay, so this right here is the oil rig itself. This is where explosions tend to happen. This is the drill, and the drill goes deep beneath the Earth's crust. And as you can see, this is the water mixture. And the water mixture, as it goes into the cracks, you can kind of see what's going on right here. As the water goes into these cracks, the natural gas and oil is pressed back into the drill. And the natural gas comes back up the drill, and the process of it coming back out is called the flowback process. Hydraulic fracking is only one piece of the puzzle, though. It is part of a bigger process that turns oil into gasoline. These natural gases are also known as fossil fuels, and fossil fuels are non-renewable resources. This brings me to my next point. What are the impacts of hydrofracking? I'll start with the benefits. Well, one benefit is that hydrofracking brings more jobs to local communities. And when new jobs are created, there is greater access to health care. Another great benefit is that instead of burning coal, we're using natural gas. In John Webe's article, he says coal made up about 50% of the U.S.'s electrical system in 2008, 37% in 2012. Meanwhile, natural gas went from 20% to 30% during the same period. What does this mean? This means less emissions of nitrogen oxide and sulfur dioxide, meaning less air pollution, because we're using natural gas. So, what are the negative effects of hydrofracking? Well, a big one is that it's a non-renewable resource, so we cannot depend on it long term. Another negative impact is the health risks for workers on these plants or on site. Scientists have identified 3 major health risks. 1, workers can experience silica sand inhalation when they breathe in the fine particles of sand used in the fracking process. This can cause long-term lung damage. 2, workers are exposed to chemical spills. And 3, exposure from flowback operation also puts workers at risk. According to the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences, initial field studies suggest that workers perform certain operations may be exposed to high levels of volatile hydrocarbons, which can be acutely toxic. Exposures have resulted in the deaths of at least 4 workers since 2010. Hydrofracking also negatively impacts our water quality. It does this when the chemicals go into the cracks, and they travel from these cracks into underground water reservoirs, and they get into local communities' drinking water. And finally, earthquakes. The 2014 Annual Reviews of Environment and Resources paper notes that between 1967 and 2000, geologists observed a steady background rate of 21 earthquakes at a rate of 0.3 magnitude in central United States per year. Starting in 2001, when shale, gas, and other unconventional energy sources began to grow, the rate rose steadily to approximately 100 such earthquakes annually, with 188 in 2011 alone. This brings me to my next point. What are some alternative energy sources? While there are quite a few, there are 3 big ones: solar, wind, and hydraulic power. Solar power is probably the most favored. Matt Mossman states in his article, the costs of building and operating solar and wind power have plunged 88% and 69% retrospectively since 2009. In several regions of the country, renewable energy facilities are a lot cheaper than coal and natural gas facilities. In fact, another statistic shows that 39% of businesses are installing electrical generation such as solar panels, and that desire to increase the use of renewables, particularly solar, continues to trend upward among consumers. Wind power is also another great alternative. Its energy production is mature, competitive, and almost pollutant-free technology that is used in many parts of the world. Excuse me. Although there's one downside. Birds that fly past them, they get chopped up into little pieces and die. Just think, I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh at that. In Richard Ottinger's article, he states that Denmark's pioneered the use of wind energy for electricity. The country currently generates 14% of its electricity via wind. Wind power has become a big business for Denmark. It exports windmills to 35 countries and produces more than 50% of all devices manufactured in the world. Wind power could be a big business for this world and a great alternative resource. Last but not least, hydraulic power. While it's the largest renewable resource, in use today, solar power is favored more because of some of the environmental impacts hydraulic power has. Hydroelectricity is primarily generated through large dams that flood large land areas. This can create some environmental problems, like I was telling you, by displacing people and ruining the agriculture. Although new developments in technology, such as the runoff river hydroelectric system, are more complex, resulting in minimal environmental consequences. So this leads me to my second piece of visual aid. This is the percentage of U.S. adults favoring increased use of energy sources. So this one here is solar. There we go. It's solar, wind, solar panels, wind turbines, offshore drilling, hydroelectric, coal mining, and nuclear power. So the red is Republican, blue is Democrat, and then the yellow is just the general public. So I'm just going to go off the yellow percentage. So solar panel farms, 89%. Wind turbine farms, 85%. Offshore drilling, 39%. Hydraulic fracking, 39%. Coal mining, 37%. Nuclear power plants, 44%. So people favor nuclear power over offshore drilling and hydraulic fracking. Anyway, back to topic. In conclusion, I believe hydrofracking has both positive and negative effects. Today, I've gone over the concept of hydrofracking, both the positive and the negative impacts, and some alternative energy sources. And if you'll stay with me here for just a moment, I'd like to show you my third visual aid, which is right here.
We continue to track a breaking story out of Weld County. 2 workers injured and 1 killed as they try to thaw out a frozen high-pressure water line. The accident happened at a fracking site north of Firestone. 7 News reporter Lance Rand is just getting new details.
Thank you.